Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It took us a while, Gambit. They took some extra time in the break, and then we had some issues with the new system that's allowing the team to choose pick and side order. Didn't really have the last game in mind properly. I don't know. It's a little bit broken because hey, we're still in beta in this beautiful game of Dota 2, but we're finally here in the draft. Effect, they're up 1-0. Gambit, they need to win 2 in a row if they want to keep their hopes and dreams alive of making it to the perfect World Masters. My name is DragonDrop. I'm joined by Franz. Welcome back.
Hello. And it's kind of cool that Valve is even beginning to sort of implement rules for these qualifiers and for these tournaments, but you know, some players don't agree, but it's kind of cool that Valve has at least considered making their own rule set for qualifiers.
Yeah, the own rule set, and also just the in-game mechanisms to do that. Like previously, like there was a time when we didn't even have the coin toss in game, so now you have the command to just toss a coin, and it makes it much more obvious and less prone to errors or like rigs even. Like previously, admins would just maybe even throw a physical coin. Like I know I did that before that happened, but yeah, and now you have this all new system where you have like the extra buttons. But again, it doesn't necessarily work out the way that it should at all times. But now the draft itself moving pretty quickly. Ancient Apparition, Earth Spirit, and Enchantress makes it through. Team Empire have run it quite a lot in 4 position whenever they could get away with it. So what do you make of that hero nowadays?
And so in fact, they picked that Enchantress pretty quickly, right? And I think they sensed an opening in sort of their lineup and in the opponent's lineup for this, because Enchantress excels in early game scenarios where the enemy team doesn't have a support, specifically a support hero that can deal with the Enchantress. And you know, Earth Spirit and AA are certainly not heroes well equipped to deal with the creep from Enchantress or with just hitting her in general. So, you know, kind of a cool pickup from Effect coming out there.
Yeah. We'll see what the Gambit's response will be to that, because there's a few classic counters to the hero that have some attack speed buffs, especially, or a lot of magic damage to just try and burst this Enchantress down. So Ursa would come to mind, Troll Warlord. I actually also really like the Troll here, just with the Ancient Apparition, just having that cute little effect of having the extra attack speed to also counteract the Chilling Touch negative attack speed that you have.
So I think ideally against Enchantress, you want 2 things. So for the early game, you want heroes that can actually kill her. Sorry, I had to sneeze there real quick. But you want heroes that can actually kill her in the early game, and then you want heroes that are either BKB buyers or they just have so much attack speed that they override that untouchable, right? And so if you think about Enchantress as a hero, she excels specifically in the early game, and so if she doesn't sort of get off to a good start, then you never really feel her presence in the rest of the game. So, you know, shutting her down early as a support is generally a good idea. She sort of operates in the same field as Chen, you know, the early aggression with the creep, for early tower pushing, for early pressure. As an offlaner specifically, she excels at just doing tons of damage and kiting heroes, and so Gambit, you know, by picking up Puck, it kind of gives them enough magic damage now to kill the Enchantress. But
Again, the immediate counter pick with Disruptor.
yeah, this Disruptor's just been is just a really solid position 5 pick, especially against heroes like Puck and Earth Spirit, who are normally very high mobility and get hurt a ton from silences. And you know, you called it, the Ursa pick comes out for Gambit.
Yeah. Again, Disruptor also pretty decent against the Ursa for the most part, just in terms of being able to catch him around, lock him inside the kinetic field. Might change once the Ursa gets the PKB, obviously, so which should probably be on the menu for him this game.
Almost certainly a BKB game for Ursa, especially against a hero like Venomancer. And Ursa is this hero that's sort of in the same boat as Sven. I'm going to keep doing these relative matchup things, but like Ursa and Sven and all these other melee carries, they need to burst down a target at the start of the fight, otherwise their hero doesn't work. And when you're against a hero like Venomancer, if Ursa or someone doesn't take out this Venomancer early, it becomes a huge problem for Ursa, just because the movement speeds, they start stacking up, and then you're never really able to hit anyone. Your blink doesn't reset, and you know, could be a sad game for this Ursa if Effect continue to pick kiting heroes like Viper, they already have the Venomancer, even heroes like Lina or Necrophos that generally do really well against bursty melee heroes.
Yeah. It'll take some time to think about it, but they settle on the Sanking, so has some control of his own to work with. And, looks to be an off lane, perhaps, or 4 position. Well, should be off lane Sanking and 4 Enchantress, right?
Almost certainly. I mean, you don't want the Enchantress to be solo against the Ursa, and Enchantress excels as a roamer when she's allowed to move around from lane to lane with a creep, and generally offlane Enchantresses, they don't get to move around, and when you're against a lane matchup that actually has kill potential for you, it's kind of a bad idea.
Yeah. Alright,
So Effect, they still need their mid hero in Effect, and Gambit, they have the option of running this puck offlane again, but it's Gambit that gets the final pick, so there's some potential for Effect to get counter initiated on. But similar to last game, Effect, they seem to draft these lineups that have a multitude of bases covered. They have the team fight, they have the early game. Gambit, it kind of feels like Earth Spirit and Puck, they're okay at initiators, but they're no Sanking and they're no disruptor. And so I think in team fights, Effect definitely have the advantage. And so Gambit's gonna want to solve that or help solve that with their final pick.
Well, they certainly have to. I mean, for now, I would agree that the draft seems a little bit harder to execute at the very least. Like, I can definitely see them go very aggressive early on between the Ancient Apparition and the Earth Spirit, just make use of perhaps the Cold Feet or just the extra damage from the Chilling Touch to get some early kills. Especially on a hero like Drow Range or perhaps in the offlane with a puck also setting up, chipping away, but that can fall apart very quickly. Now Gambit, that last pick's gonna have to be something that ties us all together.
And in fact, I think whenever you pick Drow Ranger, it's because you sense sort of an opening in the opponent's early game and the opponent's ability to fight you in the early game, because Drow excels in scenarios where she gets her levels and farm in lane, and then the enemy team isn't really able to fight into you, specifically in the early game. So between like the 5 and 10 minute mark, and Ursa is like one of the most susceptible heroes to getting kited, especially before you get that blink. And so Effect have this huge sort of window where they can knock down as many towers as possible with the Venomancer, Enchantress, Drow Ranger. All of these heroes are really good at sieging towers safely, and then you have Disruptor and Sanking for counter initiation. And none of these heroes really need items to operate, right? I mean, obviously they prefer items, but it feels like Effect's lineup scales a lot better with levels, like the first 12 levels, than Gambit Esports' lineup. And so with that Drow pick, they get themselves some winning lane matchup. Now the Venomancer and the Enchantress and the Disruptor, they all get Drow Aura, which makes their laning phase easier. And so Gambit, they kind of, there's not a lot of heroes left, but their 5th pick has to be something that not only lanes well against heroes that have Drow Aura, but also something that helps Gambit kind of get into these fights without getting shredded. So kind of a difficult last pick coming up.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They're probably running through the rest of their reserve time to try and settle on a hero. Yeah, I do assume this pack to be offlane again, because Cheshire Cattle really likes to play it. At the same time, yeah, it's... I don't know, it should be a Venomancer mid, and it's not the worst matchup for the pack, I wouldn't say, in that lane. Then again, last time around, there was a pack versus Venom matchup in one of the side lanes. And that worked out quite well for the Venom eventually. Oh, we'll find out now. Viper, alright. That's a lot more on the nose, but... I don't know.
Kind of a hit or miss pick, especially when the enemy team has sort of this potential to bring an Enchantress mid, and then suddenly your Viper can't really trade hits with the Enchantress, right? I think from like the level 3, or sorry, from like, from the level 3 mark onwards, I think Viper's gonna have a little bit of trouble in this lane, especially with a Drow or an Enchantress. And then that also gives Effect the potential to dual lane, right? Because Drow Disruptor is a pretty good lane, especially when your lane opponent's a Puck, so the Puck can't really trade hits with both heroes. Suddenly you have a Venomancer and a Sanking top, and you know, as long as Effect sort of watch their positioning in the early game, I think they will get a lot more out of this laning configuration than Gambit.
Yep. Alright. Not really setting themselves up for the best game, but they still have to win this one if they want to stick around to the Perfect World Masters CIS qualifier. Of course, I'm talking about Gambit, who lost game number 1. Fact though, well, they win this one, then they'll have to face up against the winner of Double Dimension versus Vega Squadron. Either way, not gonna be a particularly easy match for them either.
So I think in order for Gambit to really win this game, they have to make sure that their Ursa and both the Ursa and the Viper are ready to fight when Effect start pushing down towers. So the first tier 1 might be too difficult for Gambit to pick off, or for Gambit to defend, but I sort of see 2 openings for Gambit. Either they get a really early Aegis, so while Effect is sort of pushing down towers, or while Effect is having some downtime, you know, sneak a Roshan with the Ursa, and then suddenly your team fight becomes a little bit more capable. And then definitely when the Ursa has a blink, Gambit have to do a good job of making sure that they get the best initiations possible on Effect, or get as many pickoffs as possible, because if Effect are kind of grouped up and ready to team fight, then it becomes a lot more difficult for Gambit to find a way in these fights.
Yep. Huh.
Another
Against
pause
again,
or...
yeah. I don't know what it is.
It's the CIS effect, you know,
Yeah.
always internet issues or technical issues.
It's this tournament as well, because we've had delays all over the place. Like both of the lobbies have been like half an hour, 50 minutes late.
Oh yeah,
And,
specifically this tournament. Actually, I also
yeah.
noticed that, but you know, who knows?
Well,
Maybe it's the Great Wall of Fire, the Great Firewall of China, or
yeah.
some other issue.
Let's also think that it's not just the casters, not just the teams that are under a lot of pressure and overworked almost. It's also the admins. I don't know how
Oh,
many
yes.
there are and how long the hours are that they work, but I do assume that all of these cons and qualifiers also like put a lot of stress on them. So I don't want to be too bad about it at this point. But it's definitely something that has to be addressed in the future, because it's not going to let up anytime soon, I don't think. Either bring in more people. I don't know what the solution is to that right off the top of my head right now, because I don't know what the exact situation is, but looks like, yeah, we heard some sounds. Human resumed the game, should be getting into game number 2 in just a couple of moments.
Maybe we need some robots to handle the admins and handle the adminning and lobby hosting.
Yeah, each face it had spots that do that, but it's great for best of ones, but doesn't really work as well for best of threes just yet, I don't think. Actually, no, that's wrong. It does work well in the open qualifiers at the very least, for the most part. What we really need is Weapon Lead to just come in and inspire everybody.
Speaking of inspiration, you know, Gambit, they're gonna need a lot of it this game. They're on the brink of elimination, and you know the last series didn't look too well in that game. Well, that game 1 against Effect didn't look too good. So, you know, hopefully Gambit can sort of make a turnaround this game.
Well, I definitely wouldn't say no to more Dota, but we'll find out. Effect have been looking very strong, just player-wise, in the last game as well. It's definitely a task, quite a task here for Gambit. They get the early ward down. Actually get lots of spot out our Zeke. Just running at each other for the time being. A lot of damage actually being done from both sides. Oh no, what?
Yeah, die.
He might. I think they see him up top there now. Sadori coming through.
Thunderstrike.
Someone just needs to maintain vision. Oh, he does get another orb off.
One more auto attack. 2 more auto attacks. So, I mean, still not exactly an ideal scenario for Puck. At the same time, I think the Disruptor is perfectly content.
The other side here, Roar comes in, not quite connecting onto Mag though. There's still 4 heroes from Gambit. Just need some sort of slowdown, but they can't quite get it. Mag and King R will be able to make the way away. This should still secure the bounty rune though.
Bit of an interesting movement from Gambit. Yeah,
Interesting observer placement, just blocking up this hard camp in the side jungle. It's an anti-enchantress play, isn't it?
it is, but they're gonna find that Obzord, right?
Oh man, yeah.
The battle begins.
Hey,
Well
do
played.
oh, this is a Venomancer mid. Right, Mag was their brood player. That's why he was mid last game. Sorry,
Yeah.
I got mixed up real quick. So it is a Venomancer mid. So Viper will have sort of a better time this lane. Still not the easiest lane because it is a Drow Aura Venomancer, and this bottom lane still gonna start with that creep. You know, good work on with Mag dewarding that sentry. So I think this bottom lane will get off to a great start just because neither of these supports are equipped at all to deal with an Enchantress with a creep.
Yep. Good news as well for both Cheshire Cat and Nazik is that their engagement was so early that both of them were able to just walk back to base and not use any of their regen already out on the back of that.
Always a good call, but I think Cheshire Cat's going to have a lot of difficulty this lane just because he has to trade hits with 2 heroes, so if Arzik and Sidoi do a good job with their positioning, I think Cheshire Cat's going to have a lot of trouble this lane. And Mag's actually waiting for that second creep, which means that effect will have kill potential on this bottom lane, so I think specifically this Ancient Apparition is going to have to watch his positioning because if he gets Sanking stunned, it could be the end for him.
Yeah. Well, Cheshire Cat is having a lot of issues, especially like even if he has phase shift, you can only dodge so many of these thunder strikes that Arzik is just spamming on him right now. Also part of the issue, and yeah, that is that movement. Don't have
so
troll
Mag
creep
has
or
the
anything to
perfect
set
2
things
creeps
up.
bottom here, right?
Yeah.
The Centaur and the Ursa.
Pretty
They're
close,
gonna go
yeah.
for a kill.
And King are getting range for the burrow strike, but now with the creeps being revealed, all they're really getting is Gambit just staying far away from anybody.
So a bit of a bad pull timing from Always Want to Fly here because there's not going to be any creep waves for a while.
Oh god, you always want to fly. They're looking for him, and that is the wall comes through from Bignum. But the follow-up is there. Ancient Apparition will be the first blood. Mag will take it, and Bignum himself, well, will take quite a bit of damage in return. It's Bear and Bear here for a moment. The Hell Bear and the Ursa Bear.
So Ursa kind of has the last set under the tower effect. They have a little bit of a chance to reset, and this puck is actually almost level 3. So Cheshire Cat not really in the worst position. This mid lane seems fairly even at the moment.
Oh. That's pretty good for the time being. Alpha Ninja also opting for a bit of a different build than he did last game. Going for the earlier points up in the Plague Wards to help him out. I mean, though, King found himself an Invis soon, and they're going on Mag. And already lost one of his creeps, but the stun is on the money for 2. Burst Strike to follow. Mag not quite dead just yet. The roll will connect on King though. And a couple of slows. Enough damage here with the Fury Swipe stacking up. So, hey. Turning things around here. Just going all aggressive as the creeps time out.
So that was a really good job from Gambit of sort of sensing an opening and using all their spells quite well that scenario. But Effect kind of also baited themselves into that scenario. Mag kind of walked a little bit too close. I think perhaps they were looking for King R to sort of get this initiation on the Ancient Apparition, but definitely it feels like if Mag wasn't stunned there, then it would have been a kill on either the AA or the Earth Spirit there.
Yeah. Well, stands there, just holding on in this bottom lane. Right now, though, Bignum making his way back to the fountain. Does have a teleport scroll, so is there any other lane that you can look to gank? Perhaps middle lane? Was it too hard with the ward spam?
I think that if they rotate both the Ancient Apparition and the Earth Spirit top, they can kill this Drow Ranger. The problem is that they're kind of locked up bottom to help this Ursa, and so Viper is a kill for Effect only if they bring multiple heroes. Disruptor's not exactly a hero that does a ton of damage in the early game, so there's really not a lot of kill potential coming from the mid unless there's a big rotation. The only problem with big rotations right now is that the supports are locked up in their lanes.
Yep. I'll pick them at least, taking a chance and sticking around in the middle lane. Now Ninja's playing very far forward. He does have the wards now up to level 3, so it's a bit of an issue if the initial burst fails, and there's only so much burst damage that a Viper can provide, but Kuman now got us level 6. Now you all you just get close, but again, how do you do that?
Eating ward damage feels bad.
Yeah.
Radiant
So much of that. Big
Yeah,
things not fighting openly, yeah.
Definitely sensing that something's up. The Earth Spirit's been missing for a very long time.
Kind of feeding wards up here, but hey, Cheshire Cat might actually be trouble. Azik does have the glimpse back, but hey, the all play will not be there because of the silence. Trying to go straight for the TP out, and that'll be enough. So heads up play from Cheshire Cat. Ready to the tower here. Can still munch on another tango, and they also have the shrine, I do believe, in King. Ah, okay. Does a low. A little bit of panic into them, but nothing more than that.
And so Puck's kind of having a good early game, relatively speaking. I mean, I didn't expect him to hit level 5 in this lane, but he's matched with Sadoy on the Draw Ranger, and so that kind of puts Gambit in somewhat of a position to fend off the push. So
Going into Azik as well, the roll with the stone will connect here, so it might actually be a free kill, and it will be indeed. Sadoy quite strong enough to turn things around, even with the frost arrows. Maxing those out, actually. That's a bit interesting. Bignum might actually be in trouble. Does have a roll now, and no one really in a position to block it. What do you think about this frost arrow max instead of the aura?
I suppose it helps you kite the Ursa later in the game. You know, it definitely feels like putting more points into precision aura is just so much better for helping your team and also helping you increase your damage output, because there's really not a lot of heroes that this Drow Ranger can kite this game. There's only basically just the Ursa. I mean, the Puck has an escape mechanism, and you can't exactly kite a Viper if you're on basically the same attack range. So
yeah, and kite you right back, I guess. Blows of his own.
Bit of a strange decision from my perspective, but perhaps Sadoy knows more about this hero than me.
Okay, TP out from Mars One Fly. Smoking up now together with Bignum. Leaving Ursa to their own devices here, Dahak. Be a bit careful though, there's another Centaur, King R setting up for a stun on the side. But he's also playing very defensively.
Mag has his phase boot, so this lane is quite difficult for Dahak. With that additional damage, but also the additional move speed to get away from the Yusen. Actually, Dahak's working on a... Actually, let's watch top lane real quick.
Zeke actually gonna go straight for Sadoy though with a bit of a... I think they tried to snap the call with that throw. Still get the kill, but now glimpse back into Berserk will actually miss due to the phase shift. Level 1 for Cheshire Cat, but it served him well, so a bit of a misplay perhaps from attack. Gambit make it work for the time being.
Yeah, it was quite a cool gank from Gambit. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, like if the AA and the Earth Spirit rotate top, then it's a really easy kill in the Draw Ranger, and Effect didn't really sense that coming. They didn't have their supports in position, they didn't have anyone to break the smoke, so overall really good movement from Gambit, and you know, that just puts them in sort of a better position to deal with the Drow later into the mid game.
Yep.
The problem I have with Effect's lineup is they don't really have any heroes that want to, or they don't have any heroes that are in a position to just completely roll over Gambit with map positioning right now. Like Venomancer's sort of a hero that wants to be placed into one lane, constantly pressuring it, and Mag wants to get as much as possible in this bottom lane, speaking of which.
Yeah. Forcing out the ultimate from Dahak, but Cheshire Cat also making an appearance. Creep spells have been used and cooldown for another couple of seconds, but it does not go for coil play. DD rune on Enchantress with 2 creeps, pretty scary there for the time being, but Mag is getting some extra help now himself. Azik making rotation. He's been spotted out by a ward though, and King R not just yet, just falling or sticking around a little bit further behind. Yeah, so far Gambit just trying to avoid trouble and it's working out for them. Viper as well as Ursa on top of the network chart.
Smoke coming out from Effect though. I think they accidentally popped that shrine, but we'll ignore that for now. Bignum should be in position to break the smoke. Whether or not he'll die is a different question, but... Oh.
Oh. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. The stun there onto the Viper has to go on him. Taking quite a bit of damage here. To try and TP out, but will be glimpsed back. Darkseid though cleaning up in a house. That's one down. Lot looking for Mag, but does not have any more overpower stacks left. Instead, he gets stunned up himself. Alpha Ninja and Mag is still sitting in the middle of that, doing all of the damage in the world. That will kill for the Enchantress, and now, all of the wards, they'll be able to put on some more pressure onto the tower as well if they really want to.
Really good rotation coming up from Effect there. I mean, it seemed like Bignum was gonna break that smoke and perhaps make things a little bit better for his team, but he rolls at the most inopportune time. I think if he knew that Effect was smoking in, they definitely wouldn't have attempted that kill on Venomancer. So instead of calling the Venomancer, you know, Gambit, they end up losing 3 heroes and a lot of tower damage. Actually, they lose the tower, so.
Yep.
Effect
all
sort
got
of in a
in
really
exchange.
position.
Yeah, all the really got in exchange was the Disruptor kill, but it was also ended up dying straight after, so.
Bottom lane.
Oh. Oh, wow.
Glimpse.
He's back. Vision from that thing is just too strong. And the damage is there, of course, for the Jar Ranger Aura starting to be leveled up now. Actually, already maxed out now.
And so Gambit are sort of in a bad position right now because they want to defend this bottom tower, but they have to expend so many resources to do so. And instead, it looks like Ursa's going to go for a Roshan attempt and try to trade sort of this map pressure in exchange for an Aegis. Viper might not be so lucky.
Yeah. First strike here, King R with the Invisoon setting all of that up. Silence the follow. Epicenter committed. He's just straight up dead. Question is whether or not they know that this Roshan is happening. Bignum still sticking around the last bit of his smoke of the state. That'll determine whether anyone's getting close, and yeah, looks like they don't know. Gets it Aegis at the very least, so that part of the draft is still working out.
Yeah, and with this Aegis, it actually gives them a little bit of more teamfight potential. The problem is it's kind of really hard for Ursa to fight into Effect right now. I don't think that Daha can really do anything until he has at least a blink, so he's about 2,000 gold away from that.
Yeah. Still, you also want some more levels. Overpower Furious Ice Max at the very least, just to be able to tear through the Enchantress at the earliest opportunity.
So here's a little bit of a weird part about Gambit's draft right now. The Ursa's... Actually, let's watch this fight bottom real quick. A little bit of a chase happening.
Don't think they'll be able to find anybody unless Bignum can make some crazy plays, but I'm just gonna let them go.
So I think normally, like all 5 of these Effect heroes, they scale well in the early game, as I mentioned before, but they're also eager to fight, right? Like all of these heroes want to make as much space as possible for their team, whereas for Gambit, Viper, oh, Ancient Apparition.
Chandra's so fast with the drum charge pop from himself, so they get that kill very easily. Same time in mid, Cheshire Cat might be one going on, especially if they can catch him with a disruptor. Static Storm, follow-up Silence, Kinetic Field set up. Another easy kill with the follow-up. Yeah. Well, they're eager to fight and they're finding these pickoffs at the very least.
Effect's heroes are way more eager to move around the map and make stuff happen. None of these heroes really like flash farm, and so they prefer to fight, move around with their team, and hit lane creeps. Whereas Gambit, they kind of need a little bit more time for their lineup to kick in. They need that blink on the puck, and they need that blink on the Ursa, and both of these heroes are a little bit far away from it. So you'll see that Gambit, instead of like fighting directly into Effect, they're going for these trades. They're trading the Roche for a tower, they're trading their tier 1 for a little bit of pressure in the top lane, and so, you know, Effect are just in a much better position at this stage in the game.
Yep. Can Gambit hold on? Next question.
In order for Ursa to really get into these fights, he has to kind of come in from the sideline or rely on his team to tank the bulk.
Okay, roll in. Ice Blast will connect only on the Disruptor, so they get that kill immediately. Anything more than that? Well, Bignum certainly looking for it. Throws on some extra stones here just to keep the Magnetites going, but now King with the Epicenter looking for the quick snipe. Oh, but he messed up! Cancelled his own Epicenter now. Well, there's a sentry. Should mean his own death. Mistakes were made. This is why Shift Q, ladies and gentlemen.
Shift Q.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's weird. The weirdest part is using epicenter while you're on ping. Actually, that's the worst because if you don't shift Q, then you're almost guaranteed to mess it up.
Yeah. Like a friend of mine also messed that up in our game a couple of times, and it was like, all right, he knows he should shift Q, but he's just not bothering. Wasn't bothering that game at the very least. It's like his argument was that the sound Q also doesn't quite match up. But
it's
okay.
strange because well, Puck's going down here real quick.
Maybe not. He's Blackstorm and the Ice Blast will come around, but yeah, Alpha NJ, plenty of damage over time there to follow. We'll take out of this one.
Space created, he says, as his team takes the top tier 1.
Yeah. Middle lane is looking defensive too, almost on fire, almost dies. With right clicks. We'll be able to retreat back home.
Actually, it's really surprising to me that Viper and Venomancer are sort of sitting at the top of net worth still, despite everything that's going on, so perhaps it's more of a testament to the fact that both teams don't have a dedicated, or both teams don't have heroes that are just like farming constantly at the moment. The weird thing about shift queuing in Dota, I think, or Dota 2 specifically, is there's really not a lot of heroes that have mechanics like that.
Yep.
Like, Sanking's kind of special, right? And so because you don't really, unless you're a Sanking specialist, there's really not a lot of practice you can get with shift queuing, so your brain isn't really ready for something like that. So maybe you get a little bit lazy and you think, hey, I'll just do this manually, but it's almost always better to shift queue in Sanking.
Yep.
Unless you play a lot of RTS games, then you'll also do a lot of shift queuing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With especially with like worker scouting and whatnot.
Well, sometimes you can argue after blink you might want shift queue something as well, but most of the time, like when you blink initiate on somebody, you just want to make sure that you actually hit a target and target that properly. But yeah, anyway, moving on from that topic. King will probably have learned from his mistakes in this game, and now he has blink of his own, just as Ursa picks up his, so I'll start picking up as well.
Could be a bit of a timing from Gambit. I mean, they can go for a smoke play much more easily than before, but Effect are kind of suspicious right now, right? They see 4 heroes missing. Venomancer's just hiding in the trees, so is the Disruptor. Actually, almost all the heroes on Effect are kind of hiding in the trees right now. A bit of a funny scenario. But sometimes the enemy team can put on a scare tactic as well, so you see Effect starting to move around a little bit more, perhaps bait the Sanking in the bottom lane with Disruptor, or maybe the Disruptor is just gonna die here. We'll see.
Find out. I think, yeah. Gambit, they knew the King R was sticking around in this bottom lane because of the SWAT that they had placed. So they were going for that Ice Blast and perhaps into some sort of follow-up, but that A ultimate barely missing means that they're not really wanting to commit. Again, also very limited vision from both sides at this point.
And Effect are winning this exchange just because they have 2 heroes that are currently jungling the the Drow Ranger and the Enchantress, whereas Gambit kind of just had 5 heroes sitting around or 4 heroes sitting around for a while. And so I think Gambit's next moment to make a move might just be around the time Roshan respawns. Effect are really scared of getting bursted down right now, because if they're slightly out of position, oh, Puck in the bottom lane.
Cheshire Cat. Given a fun time last game on the same hero, and this game also shaping up to be quite a nuisance for me, especially with Disruptor keeps catching him up. This could be good here. Darkseid, Sidoi dropping lower and lower, but forced up back. He will still fall, but nice little burst strike from King R. Trying to turn things around. Max still very much standing, but there's the ultimate from Bignum. Same for Alpha Ninja. Kuman comes in with a 4-star forward, but gets glimpsed back. TP out though. Fact, make the call. Let's just get the hell out of here. Let's retreat. Stun up on Mag, who didn't get the memo. Kuman trying to attack him, so is always on the fly. It's a bit of an impossibility, especially with Chilling Touch as well, but King R, this time it doesn't mess up. Epicenter comes out, Viper caught with Burst Strike in the front, and Mag just needs to get one more ugly. Beautiful stun though again from Bignum, trying to turn things around. In effect, they're the ones falling. Kuman still very much alive Half an NJ, next one to fall. Double kill for the Ancient Apparition of all people.
And a really well executed fight from Gambit there. They managed to catch the Drow Ranger and the... There's another hero there. They managed to catch two heroes there really well, and Ursa bursted down the Drow, which means most of Effect's damages, or most of Effect's single target damage was missing, right? And so the heroes of Gambit had no issues just being in the middle of a fight, being on top of the Effect heroes, and as a result, Effect were always playing that fight from behind, and Gambit managed to net a couple of kills.
Yeah. And if you look at the graphs, puts that 4k or so advantage. Effect has been nursing for a while, right back to below 1k. Now with Roshan, not quite up yet, still needs a minute or so, so it would have been even better for Gambit just finding that right as Dahak picks up the DD rune.
And I think Roshan's really going to be an important focus for both teams coming up for the next couple of minutes. I mean, Effect don't want this Ursa to get it, and Effect don't want to give any room for Gambit to begin Roshan, just because the Gambit lineup kind of take Roshan so quickly, and so you'll see Effect, they're kind of posturing a couple of their cores around the middle lane, making sure that they're ready for a potential fight, and you know, as long as Effect kind of have this pressure, it's not easy for Ursa to just walk into the pit, and so Gambit, they're opting for a smoke play instead.
Yep.
Perhaps they will find Sidori in the jungle, or... Oh, Roche isn't quite up yet.
Azik showing himself middle lane, but they do see, in fact, see Sidori farming. He's a very easy kill indeed. Coil, even after he died, so yeah. But hey, it is what it is. Roshan has respawned, so that's all that we're really looking for. Get rid of the mud golems.
Well, these creeps... Oh, no, they won't aggro onto Roche. Would have been funny if they did.
Yeah. Disruptor also gets killed here, so he's sticking around behind the tier 1 tower. Kuman just finishes that one up, keeping the pressure up here, but the trade-off will be the bottom lane. That's continually being pressured by Effect to this point.
And I think this is a huge turning point for Gambit. They're gonna have the Roshan, they're gonna have Cheese with Aegis, and so Effect's lineup really isn't configured for this kind of scenario, just because it feels like their lineup was reliant on pushing and snowballing, but instead Gambit kind of have the upper hand here, and you know, for the next 5 minutes, for at least 5 minutes, they're gonna have Aegis and be able to top lane.
Link burst strike on the puck, but no immediate follow-up. Azik also this time he does not have the vision for the glimpse back.
Yeah, unfortunately the TP on Disruptor took a little bit too long, but...
Magnum is looking for a double silence. The stun will be off the mark. The Ice Blast only grazed the Disruptor. So far so good. Max slowed down slightly, but now, well, Magnum isolated from the rest of his team as Gambit make the call. Let's get the hell out of here. Not sure if they have detection at the ready here for Always Wanna Fly, but yeah, they'll stick him in the sandstorm. We'll get that kill eventually. Both the support from Gambit give their lives to the cause that already have retreated.
Bit of an ambitious kill attempt by the Earth Spirit on the Ancient Apparition there. I mean, they didn't have any of their cores, they didn't see the Effect lineup, so Effect doing a good job punishing the two supports there, but you know, they still have this Aegis to deal with, and they still have this incredibly huge Viper to deal with as well, almost at BKB, and well above the Drow Ranger in net worth.
Effect will take advantage of this, just rushing this top lane all the way to the tier 2, but yeah, with that Aegis, with that Cheese, they think twice about actually committing for it. But it does force out some movements here. Dahak, plus the rest of his team, they're making their way towards this part of the map.
And so instead of being super aggressive, I think Gambit are working on their next set of items. They have a BKB coming on the Viper and the Ursa, and I think these BKBs will pose a huge problem for Effect, just because Effect don't exactly have a way to deal with these BKBs. They don't have spells that go through BKBs, and their Drow Ranger's also not in a position to try to trade hits with this Viper Ursa, and it also feels weird that Sidoi hasn't opted for something like a Dragonlance, or at least a Force Staff, especially against a hero like Ursa.
Yeah. Working on his own BKB for now. I guess if you can stay just out of the fights entirely, or just way in the back, maybe you can just buff up the Enchantress enough, because her impetus does go through spell immunity as well. It is pure damage, so it's the one way that they have. Actually do a sizable amount of damage through BKB, I guess.
I think the real problem for them is they don't have a way to stop the Ursa from hitting people as soon as the Ursa picks up the BKB, right? And they don't have any force staffs. Well, I guess the Venomancer has a pike. So does the Enchantress. So you know they kind of have sort of a method to get away from him, but you also have to get away from the Dream Coil and the Viper and.
Dire's middle tower is
Also going for
know,
multiple halberds, so if you can get that off on the Ursa before it pops BKB.
It is possible.
Yeah,
that's if the Ursa ever gets halberded in a fight, it's because he was being greedy or just like not popping his BKB.
Yeah.
In time. It's something you definitely pop before you start blinking, and you know Kuman's also so far ahead on this Viper that it poses a problem or poses a question like, is Sidoi actually able to one-on-one this Viper if the scenario shows up?
Yeah. We have seen Vipers that just get out of control and even do a significant amount of damage in late games with pure right clicks. Doesn't have any items really that buff him up in that regard just yet, so no Maelstrom or Butterfly even or something like that.
Yeah, he hasn't really needed it though, because neither team has really been super aggressive at any point in this game, and so usually you would see like a Viper fall off in farm, especially in a game where he doesn't pick up that Maelstrom, but it's not like anyone on effect are also quick farmers. There's no like alchemists or Sven or anti-mages in the game, and so you know, as soon as Gambit sort of set themselves up in a position where Kuman was able to farm wave after wave, he just slowly overtook the Drow just because his Drow was feeling so much more pressure than the Viper.
Yep.
You know, it's not easy for Effect to go for these kills too. It definitely feels like Enchantress is a hero that has fallen off at this point in the game, especially when Gambit have so many ways to deal with the Enchantress, right? Not only do you have the Ursa, but there's enough magic damage from the Earth Spirit Puck and the AA, especially with the AA, to cancel the healing.
Definitely much more competitive match than last game was. The Hawk sitting in the side here on the Ursa, ready to blink in with that Aegis. Never mind,
Hopefully
just
he doesn't
inspired.
get...
Yeah, that is gets cancelled out. It's bad, man.
But
at the very least, the
luckily
kick damage doesn't cancel it. So.
Yeah, the poison sting from the ward doesn't cancel blinks. Oh, a little bit
that
of an
is,
initiation.
they find the roll in the back on the Sanking here. Foster away, Ice Blast will actually miss here, but Magnetizing everybody will make Effect think twice about continuing. Mag pops the heal, but Sanking just opts to use a Shrine, I believe. Bignum is still sitting inside now. He's the one being isolated here. Rolls away, back up to the high ground. Will take out the damage over time. Again, really awkward initiation there for Gambit. The rest of them just scrambling to get out.
But also really good positioning from Effect. I mean, they used the Force Staffs to protect each other, and they were kind of just not in an easy place for Gambit to initiate. And it definitely felt like Ursa and Earth Spirit kind of jumped the gun there. I mean, I think their play there was probably to just watch Kuman hit.
Joshua Cat comes in, Static Storm comes down, doesn't actually catch him, the glimpse back all the way up to the front. Kuman eats a cheese, he is that man fight that you were talking about, but Sidoi has plenty of other heroes around him, so he needs to kind of try and fall back. The rest of his team finishing up Kuman there instead, but there it is. Daha comes in, trying to turn this around, but he gets halberded. He can be on cooldown even, follow-up halberd, he cannot do anything. Half Ninja drops him down below half health. And they're still all buffed up by Draw Range Hour. Nice little blink burst strike here, and actually not caring for the Ursa at all. They want the Ursa and they find it. And now they finish up Bignum as a secondary target. Great target choice here from Effect. Feel like they're making the right decisions throughout all of these fights. Like when to fight, when to just back up to the rest of the team.
Definitely.
Yeah, they'll get the CO2 on top of it, and perhaps even high ground. Closing out some buybacks. Kuman doesn't even have it.
It was a really good opening from Effect there, right? They knew the Ursa's BKB was on cooldown, they knew the Viper was relatively isolated, and now putting a lot of damage on this tier 3, but Ursa will buy back. Perhaps that will deter Effects.
All the lanes are being pushed in as well. I don't know.
You know, that Effects' lineup is super effective. I know I was hyping up the BKB factor, but the BKBs were down there, and you know, it seems like now that Effect have a lot of halberds and a lot of force staffs, they're actually more than capable of kiting this Ursa and the Viper, and so, you know, if Gambit don't get the right initiations, I don't see them winning any of these team fights. I mean, in fact, they're just playing these fights so fantastically. Sidoi has a BKB coming up on the Drow Ranger. There's halberds on 2 heroes, so even if... Oh, on a lane.
Well, it's just something that we've seen time and time again in this game in particular. Puck just being caught out by Static Storm.
Yeah.
It is the textbook counter, so...
Effect is just doing such a good job of catching this puck, and
Yeah.
the cool thing about Halberd as an item against Ursa is not only do you get the disarm effect, but also the evasion itself is generally enough to protect you from the initial burst damage of Ursa, and Ursa as a hero can't really succeed when he can't burst down one hero at the start of the fight, because if he can't burst down one hero, then the potential to get kited just increases so much.
Yeah. Just looking for the Diffusal Blade to try and help him counteract some of that and keep Piro slowed down. But question is how much of an effectiveness that's really going to have, judging that the Venomancer is also about to pick up the BKB. Enchantress going for the Dragon Lance now, so not quite getting there. The BKB on the Drow, you talked about it as well, it's already up and running. Someone needs to respond to this top lane though, that's a big creep wave including a catapult. That is. Right, so where do we go from here? You're just looking for the next Roshan now if you're either team?
I think it's too long until or you can't really sneak a Rosh. I don't think Gambit can exactly sneak a Rosh right now. It might take too long, so perhaps look for a kill first or attempt to sneak a Rosh anyway. So, you know, if Effect scout this out, there's 6k net worth ahead, and so it should be a really easy fight for them, but instead feels like they don't know what's going on, or maybe they might be a little bit slow, but
yeah, they are grouping up for smoke right now, but yeah, it's way too long. Takes way too long. So Aegis in the hands of Dahak. Human picking up the cheese once again.
So really good timing for Gambit there to take that Roshan, and it does make the game a little bit easier for them. I still feel like Effect have the upper hand in these fights. They just have to be a little bit more careful with how they take them now. So I imagine Effect are going to be playing really defensively, making sure that they don't get picked off outside their base, and make sure that they are next to each other to protect themselves from a potential pick-off.
Yep. Well, finally pull the trigger on that smoke, and they're working their way towards Cheshire Cat. Actually missing the stun, so and the silence. That's a bit annoying. Bignum now, nice little double stun. Hoping that ultimate, and 4 staffs away from Dahak, who pops BKB, is still getting close enough to the Enchantress, bursting her down first. The epicenter kind of messed up in the back, but the fun is happening in the front. Kuman with his own BKB. Finish up another target. They did trigger the Aegis, but now Sidoi, next on the list, can disarm one, but not the other. And Venomancer also unable to really play his way out of there. Great fight for Gambit, just find the initiation as Effect kind of fumbled the smoke.
It was kind of weird for me that that Effect decided to go for a fight there. You know, they were running up a hill. Perhaps it was unfortunate that this puck broke their smoke early, but definitely didn't feel like the kind of path to take. You know, I think normally when you want to smoke like that, perhaps go from the high ground instead of up a cliff, because instead they kind of just walked into the initiation from Gambit, and Gambit take a great fight. But if anything, Sidoi showed that he has the damage output to just shred through this Ursa. I think this Drow Ranger just killed the Ursa in like 4 seconds through that Aegis, so
yeah,
you know,
still another huge network swing. And
these fights are still a little bit difficult for Gambit. I mean, that fight presented itself perfectly to them, though.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Like, that was the perfect team fight for Gambit, and in the perfect world for Effect, these kind of team fights don't even happen like that at all. I mean, they miss the silence as well as a Burrow Strike to start off with, and if these connected on the park, maybe that looks a little bit different. Then let's see how it works out. For now, Gambit keep themselves in the game at the very least, and also looking for these extra bit of items. Aghanim stepped on the puck, try and help against these BKBs and still have them controlled up, and Anything else that we haven't talked about just yet? Okay, that's that disruptor.
PKB coming up on Mag. Glimmer Cape on the AA kind of helps him against the potentially game picked off from the Drow. Viper working on a Butterfly, and I don't think Sidoi is going to have a Monkey King bar anytime soon, so that should give Kuman a little bit of extra survivability in these fights, especially since it feels like Sidoi's damage output is starting to kick in. The only problem is like Sidoi hasn't gotten any kills yet, so it feels like perhaps this Drow pick isn't working as well for effect as they would want it to.
Yeah. At the very least, he's always giving 71 damage at this point. He did not go for the plus 6% precision aura damage, so maybe that's an indication that they feel a little bit stressed. They rather have these extra life points on the Drow from the strength.
Yeah, a 6% precision aura damage is nice, but I think the strength is really important for Drow because Drow in the late game doesn't really build a lot of HP items. I think the BKB is one HP item, but the only other one in my memory that Drow would normally buy is something like a Satanic, but she's far from it. So anything that helps her survive that initial burst from the Ursa is extremely helpful.
Yep.
Dire are scanning.
Oh. Bit of a smoke up here. That's might have actually been scouted out by this Radiant Observer. They definitely scouted out now. They're going for Azik first. King R with the burst strike back down. The Ice Blast will connect on a couple of heroes here. Nahak in the middle of that, looking for Alpha Ninja first. Sidoi sitting on the high ground. But, well, that's a big Angry Bear and Cheshire Cat also helping him out. Azik drops on the Static Storm, not a silence back. Sidoi actually in a pretty good position for now if he can just play keep away, and they get him. Effects bring down the Behemoth, and now they're looking for more slowdown and always want to fly. Gets the glimpse back up to the high ground. Cheshire Cat comes in to try and help out with silence, but has to play his way out of there. 2 for 3 trade as a direct result. Able to kite the Ursa in the end after that BKB has ended.
This was a little bit of a weird fight for effect again. I think this is just Gambit positioning themselves really well, right? They had the puck again to break that smoke, and so effect kind of started that fight at a disadvantage, and it still turned around for effect, right? They managed to kill 3 heroes.
Yep.
Mainly because, you know, that BKB ends on the Ursa, and then he just gets killed so fast by effect's lineup.
Yeah. For one day he looked invulnerable when his BKB as well as his enrage was going. But after that it's just such a short timing window.
He does manage to kill the Venomancer in a hurry, and I think part of the reason why is because the Venomancer had to expend his Hurricane Pike early on in the fight just because they started somewhat out of position, and now Puck, I don't know if he had the Aghanim's that fight or after it, but he has it completed now with a gem, which should give Gambit a little bit of extra map control, and the Aghanim's itself should help deal with sort of this kite factor from effect.
Yeah. And these extra tools, have to put them to use.
So I can't say that like I can't say that either team is really ahead at the moment or have a point. I mean, the net worth difference is about 1,000, which is, you know, pretty minuscule. So
yeah.
I really think that
like, it's been a very even game overall. I mean, even that 6k gold lead that Effect had a little bit earlier was only momentary.
I think that Effect kind of have the advantage just because it's a lot harder for Gambit to high ground into Effect's lineup than the other way around, and so, you know, if Effect start taking the right fights, I think that they will definitely have an advantage. The problem is the last 2 fights have sort of just been them running into a trap. I mean, it's they still managed to survive with most of their heroes intact, but you know, I think Effect definitely have to watch their positioning and watch the way they're starting their team fights a lot more, especially with their respawn time starting to increase from their levels.
Yeah, but taking it very slow, very conservatively here. Kuman just gets a couple of hits off and then gets glimmercade by his teammate. Have 2 lanes pushing in. Top lane though goes very much in favor of Effect here with the triple range creep. They ping it out too. Eventually that'll have to be taken care of. And Effect also starting to build up the wall of wards. Very hard team to push into like that.
Aegis or Roshan respawning in about 10 seconds, however, so Gambit do have that option if they choose to go for it, especially since Effect are kind of stuck in their base right now, and Gambit have 2 lanes pushing in. I mean, that top wave is huge, but not anymore because of the AA ult, so...
Oh yeah.
Cool little positioning from Gambit. They also have the warding advantage here, but not entirely sure how effective this warding will be, especially because as soon as Gambit leave this area, Effect will definitely look to deward that area with the gem on the Sand King.
Yep. Well, for now, it's the second run. Roshan has had a very short respawn timer, so it's back up and running. No team really knows it just yet, but it's always on the fly and scouting it out. This might just lead them to the call, hey, go for this now, instead of just biding our time outside the base.
So Effect haven't really scouted any of these Roshan attempts coming out from Gambit, and I think part of the reason why is because they don't have any heroes that clear out waves safely, whereas Gambit... Oh,
well, that's
a little bit of an interesting altercation here.
Cheshire Cat should be fine. Yeah.
Versus starting to get working on Roshan.
This dies so fast at this point.
So Gambit definitely have the advantage with wave clearing, right? You have 2 heroes that push out waves safely, the Ancient Apparition and the Puck, and as a result, Effect are always sort of playing reactionary when it comes to the lanes. Like, the lanes are mostly on their side of the map, and so they're never really in a position where they can freely move around to scout out this Rosh. They don't have any spells other than Serpent Wars to scout out Rosh, but that's not as safe as, say, something like a Rocket Flare or an Ancient Apparition, and as a result, you know, we see Gambit having an easy time with all of these Rosh attempts, but perhaps it's Effect also recognizing that they can't exactly safely engage a fight around the Rosh pit.
Yep. You can have the
especially
puck.
Because
Yeah, like you have the puck, you have the...
on distance.
On distance, yeah. My point would have been to, like, alright, you have the Earth Pit, you have the puck, none of them really have to be inside the Rosh pit, so they can set up perfectly for this counterplay, not to mention the Ice Blast and the Ancient Apparition. Alright. So they got the Aegis, they got the Cheese. Booman leading the charge up top. Middle lane also very close. Bottom lane though is being pushed in. King R still sticking around in this area for a little bit. Not the most accomplished split pusher, but he will be able to do some damage to the high ground. But the question is, it'll be worth it. Kuman just pulling on the machine gun fire up in the top lane. It's really all they're really looking for the time being. If they bring that down, the next drop is the shrines. And yeah, King R made his way back now.
So Gambit really don't have anything to worry about when they're pushing right now. They have the AA to keep, or the AA and the Puck to push out lanes. So, you know, Gambit sort of are in a win-win position here because Effect, they have to have all 5 heroes in their base. So Gambit will slowly start to outfarm Effect while doing damage to this tier 3.
Someone Viper with Glimmer Cape, make sure he doesn't really die. The dust will connect, but again, no follow-up here. Having a bit of an issue. Glimpse back before Savannah Kinetic Field. How does Effect go into this? How do they prevent the chip damage?
It's hard for them to prevent the chip damage, right? Because this Viper is so tanky, so survivable. You have the Butterfly, you have the Cheese, you have the Hurricane Pike, and so it's quite easy for Gambit to continue to keep this up. And perhaps Effect, like, 2 ways they can do this is either they can stall the Aegis, so wait for the Aegis to expire, or they can try to go for a crazy team fight by kind of wrapping around on Gambit. But, you know, Gambit had this ward set up on the cliff, so that kind of option is probably really scary for Effect, because you never really want to flank when the enemy team is already set up with ward vision and with their positioning. So
Yep.
Looks like Gambit will choose to back out, however.
Covering all the bases, Cheshire Cat putting out the fires down the bottom, pushing that over to the other side of the map. He does have the boots of travel, so he can always rejoin his team as necessary. But okay. Sand King caught out. That's a gem carrier too. They're just trying to deward, but maybe a bait as well. But Kuman in the front lines almost gets Arzeek here. Barely able to make their way back up to the high ground. very dangerous to move out like that.
So I don't know what the timing on the Aegis is, but I feel like it's going to expire at least within the next minute, so...
1 minute, 20 seconds. Yeah.
Was there a timer for it somewhere?
I can hover over the Roche timer. Roshan may respawn in 4 minutes or something, and it expires at 3 minutes.
Ah, okay, okay.
So it's
That's
pretty
cool.
helpful for me because I can never remember it otherwise.
I usually rely on tier 3 going down. Kuman taking a lot of damage though.
On a half health, but Cheshire Cat with great initiation. BKB's come out, but Sadoi in the middle of that. Gonna get down over Darkseid, snaps the Coral, and that'll mean the last swipe will connect. 2 heroes down, no buyback for Drow actually. It's a really, really big deal. The Shrine is just barely keeping King Arna Zeke alive at the moment. Well, Mac at least can try and do some damage. Darkseid to glimpse him back, so that at least trigger the Aegis. Can it kill him a second time without the draw or damage? It's certainly going to try. He cannot blink out with a Sandstorm connected, and yeah, the rest of his team also abandoning him. They get that 1 counter kill, have to use a buyback for it. They still lose the tier 3, so the shrines are open for Gambit to take. He certainly don't want to drop out of these perfect world qualifiers without putting up a fight. Oh, sorry, got hiccups there.
That's okay, but they're starting to mount an advantage, right? I mean, most of their net worth, I think, goes on this Viper. This Viper is 9k ahead of the Drow, and this Ursa's not exactly like 6 slotted, right? He's only like 4 slotted at the moment, so...
Yep.
Kuman almost maxed out on items as soon as he picks up that MKB, and it looks like he's gonna have it now. Probably going to exchange his cheese for it, so...
Yep.
This Viper has achieved God status in this game.
Maximum Viper ring. I don't know how you say it.
Definitely feels like, you know, the Enchantress and the Drow are starting to fall off in these fights. I think they don't have enough damage to deal with the Viper. Sure, they can kite the Ursa, but the real threat coming out of Gambit right now is this Viper, and so... Oh, bottom lane.
Ice Blast coming in as well, so Sanking is TPing out, but Cheshire Cat with a quick zap. Level 3 Dagon, I haven't talked about that yet, but...
You got the 420 gold per minute. I mean, we can go through a lot of items. We haven't really talked about items in a while, but Ancient Apparition getting pretty close to the Aghanim Scepter, and yeah, Disruptor's not going to have an Aghanim Scepter like he had last game. Oh, he might actually get caught here as well.
Oh man, just being very confident. I mean, the rest of his team is quite a ways away, but yeah, how do you even kill him? Still holding on to the cheese in his main inventory for the time being, so... This
Viper's sort of just the apex predator of the game right now. I mean, he's not scared of anything, right? His team is close enough to help him, and he takes so long to kill, especially with this cheese and BKB.
He has 45 armor, like, without any armor items because of this freaking talent.
The talent tree is insane. Actually, Viper's talent tree is one of the best talent trees, I think. It's underrated. Everything on there except maybe the 75 attack range is extremely useful.
Well, it's definitely more useful than poison attack affects buildings. That's the
not a lot of heroes have a plus 16 of their primary stat at level 15.
Yeah.
And the health talent is also not anything to be joking about. So.
Well, effect kind of being bled dry. That gold advantage for Gambit. It was a couple moments ago. It was a 10k. Now it's 15k ahead. Building the advantage more and more. In effect, they can't really leave their base to try and farm up themselves. Kind of been stuck in their own item progression for quite a while.
Yeah, I think this is just the effect lineup falling off, right? It definitely feels like effect we're drafting this kind of timing lineup where their window to win was like from the 10 to 20 minute mark, but instead, you know, Gambit, they get all of the Roshans this game, and I think that's really what kept them in.
Almost got the puck there. But now, who's being caught? Azik dropping lower and lower. The roll will connect and they'll secure the kill. No buyback on him either, so 60 seconds without the static storm. This might just be the opening that Gambit were looking for. They're going with the call, snapped immediately here, but Darkseid coming in further, slowing down Sadoi. Mantis it off, pops his own BKB, just trying to walk away. They'll be successful, but instead they find the Venom Arts, and no buyback on him either. Used it earlier. Silence there on Cheshire Cat. You'll have to take care of this one. The kiting around. So many heroes at the same time, and okay, Cheshire Cat will give us own life for the cause, but did get the Drow Ranger, forcing out the buyback on Sadoi. Kuman, well, ate the cheese, ready to go again. Darkseid in the middle of that, just looking for the Enchantress. One more likely he would have done it, but force himself up to the high ground will keep Mac alive for the time being anyway. Cheshire Cat, all needs to do is get close for the Dagon, and there it is. zapped down despite the heals and force buyback again. It's on 2 heroes here, not a whole lot of control factor between those two either. So Gambit have complete reign to get the first set of racks, and honestly they can just go for the next one. They can go for the GG push here if they really want to. Cool, man, just way too strong, and the other heroes, that's not even got that either. That was an illusion.
They
Not
sure
being
showed
punished.
that
Cool,
illusion,
man.
though.
Slowed down. Actually, it didn't quite, but down between those 2 heroes. BKB just to stop the glimpse. Can they get in range though? Okay, Big Numb, Darkhawk, they're turning this around, and that's a dieback. It should be GG right now, especially with the AA blast coming through. It's way too strong effect. They are being bested here in game number 2 of this best of 3 series.
And so I think where this game went right for Gambit, they came out of the laning stage, and I think a Effects lineup was reliant on sort of snowballing off the laning phase, but the Viper manages to beat the Venomancer handily, and as a result, you know, this Viper was always in a position to fight into the Effect lineup, and because Gambit managed to get all of the Roshans, Effect were never really in a position to kind of end the game. In fact, they had to play behind, they had to play defensively against the Aegis and the Cheeses, and as a result, Gambit just slowly won the game, and they take game 2.
Yep. Pretty strong performance. That's for damn sure. That Viper really putting it out for them. And also as well, like we talked about, his potential impact quite a bit throughout this game. And 12-4-8. Pretty he has delivered, I guess. You could say that. And yeah, that early game strat from Effect, not really connecting as early as it needed to. Gambit, they keep their hopes and dreams alive, turning the series into 1-1 scoreline, which means we'll have a deciding game 3 coming up soon, so don't go too far away.